Welcome to We're Gonna Run It with Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden.
You're listening to We're Gonna Run It.
What's your game plan?
Can they run, but will they run? If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
Gutless. We're gonna run it.
We're gonna play blue collar. Enjoy it. I said it. Have a little heart and have some stones.
We're gonna run it.
If you want to throw an RPO, you got to run first, pass second. That's why it's not called a PRO. It's an RPO. You got to start with a running game that puts people on their heel.
Take a look at my algo. His algo is used with all data from last year. You're so smart, you're stupid.
We're gonna run it.
And the people that believe that talking head are even stupider than what I thought. I said it.
If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
You got no shot to get back into the series. No shot. I said it. What's your game plan?
We're gonna run it.
Oh, baby. Week number 4 of the college football slate is here. Welcome to We're Gonna Run It. Joe Lisi and Coach Terry Bowden, sponsored by FanDuel. Coach, the calm before the storm. We have some games underway right now. Charlotte trails Rice 7-3. Charlotte entered this matchup as a 2.5-point underdog. We'll see if the 49ers can respond and upset Rice at home. They struggled a couple weeks ago with North Carolina. Right now, Rice up 7-3 with about 3:42 left in the first quarter. But we talked about the upsets in week number 3, really changed and formatted the national championship picture and the conference championship odds across the landscape. I've told you this. I want to get your take before we kick it off. Is the SEC still the best conference, or is the Big Ten across the first 3 weeks of the regular season the teams to beat?
Yeah. You know what? It still depends on how you look at it. Top to bottom, worst team to the best team, the entire conference, SEC is still the best top to bottom. Go look at the schedules people have. How many are in the top 25? But when it comes to the 2 or 3, maybe 4 programs that can play for a national championship and win it, the Big Ten probably right now 3 out of 5 this week. And right now, they're as strong at the top, if not stronger, than the SEC at the very top.
It is. And I have no problem, I told you, with Ohio State being the top dog on FanDuel. They have the best odds right now, followed by Penn State and Oregon. That's where I think it gets a little tricky. Who's potentially the second team, the third team? You know, Oregon and Penn State really haven't played a top 20, top 15 opponent like the Georgia Bulldogs. And call it what you will, that was still an impressive win for Georgia. I know it wasn't the Georgia way where the defense held Joey Aguilar and the Tennessee Volunteers to only, let's say, 10 or 13 points, but they found a way to make plays in the fourth quarter, pull it out in overtime. And if there's any concern about Gunnar Stockton being the guy, well, he's got experience now and he stepped up.
Oh, no, he looked like a veteran in that game. I had not seen enough of him to know if he would be the next guy. The guy that can run that offense, manage that offense, throw when they have to throw, but hand off and make sure you run the offense the way they want to run. He is the guy. He did a great job. I mean, you don't just go into Tennessee and play a Josh Heupel offense with a quarterback that fits into that offense and outscore them like they did unless you have a quarterback that can lead your team. I think Gunnar Stockton is that guy for Georgia. Answers a lot of questions I had. Well, I say it's one of the big questions I had about Georgia as we looked at their chances to go on to the conference, to the college football playoffs, and maybe even the championship game.
Absolutely. And Georgia right now on FanDuel with the best odds at plus 290 to potentially win an SEC championship, followed by Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns at 3-1. LSU is an intriguing team. You and I had talked about it. We know the defense has stepped up. Obviously, over the past couple of seasons, Blake Baker has made his footprint on this defense. They were opportunistic against DJ Lagway in Florida. 5 interceptions really keyed that victory to allow LSU to win 20-10 and cover that 6.5 point closing line. The offense, though, we haven't seen that explosiveness. They averaged 318 passing yards per game last year. Garrett Nussmeier has been good. He hasn't been elite. The story out in Baton Rouge, from what I've heard and what the rumblings are, he's been a little bit banged up. Yeah. Are you buying into that heading into week 4? And is it a problem for LSU?
I kind of do. I think the same thing is being said about DJ Lagway down in Florida. Had a lot of off-season, summer injuries that did not let him progress. Now, Nussmeier is much more of a veteran. He can stay off and not take as many reps in the offseason, preseason. But if he's banged up a little bit and he's not able to step forward on his front foot, he's not able to sit, not able to do this or do that, that could affect him. But I still think they have not shown enough on offense. They've got to let it loose. I made the statement today on my X account that you can't be just one-sided. Eventually, especially with the playoff system, you may have a one-game playoff or a championship game in the old days where you could come out without a great offense and win one game. But as you get to the end of the season and you've got to beat three teams that have a lot of talent, one of those games you got to outscore them. And so that's what LSU, whether he's banged up right now and will get better, you've got to eventually be able to be big on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. A couple of big games this weekend that we're going to dive into. We have two special guests at 8:15 Eastern Time. We're going to be joined by Mark Lawrence. Mark joined us last week, gave us some great underdog picks, including Vanderbilt over South Carolina, Kansas, and West Virginia square off this weekend. He was on West Virginia as well in the upset over Pittsburgh. They stepped up in the backyard brawl. And then we're going to be joined by your brother, Tommy, who coached Clemson to great success, and also Tulane, which a lot of people forget. He had a perfect regular season record. We're going to get the pulse of what Tommy believes Dabo is. Dabo was the wide receiver coach for your brother in Clemson, took over when Tommy was no longer there, and then obviously won 2 national championships. And then the success at Tulane that Tommy built, we see it now with John Summerall and the Green Wave. They have a huge game against Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. And just from a mindset perspective, Coach, I think we could start there. Is Tulane has lost 13 straight games to the Ole Miss Rebels. Last time they played was a couple of years ago. You watched that matchup. Just overall, and we're just looking at the Green Wave and just looking at that body of work, they've lost the last 4 games, Coach, by an average margin of defeat of 27.5 points per game. What could John Summerall, from a coaching perspective, when you've been beaten down by an opponent, get this team up? Obviously, they're undefeated. There's motivation there. But what could John Summerall do to motivate Tulane to snap the streak? Because the reason why I bring that up, Coach, is because last week we saw Clemson go down after winning 9 straight to Georgia Tech. And we saw Tennessee at least cover the number after losing 8 straight to the Georgia Bulldogs.
Well, I think the thing that's a little different here, though all those past games between Tulane and Ole Miss were prohibitive favorites. They're SEC caliber. Tulane is a lower level. I say a lower. They're the G5 level. They're in a different conference. Every single year, they don't have the talent as Ole Miss, especially in the last 20 years when there was so much more talent in the SEC. And that's the situation. That's the first thing that Coach Summerall, John Summerall's got to do at Tulane. Forget the past. It has nothing to do with what's going on right now, how good they are right now. They knocked off Northwestern. They knocked off Duke, and Duke has really started putting some athletes in that program that are comparative to some of the top programs in the ACC and even the SEC, and they whipped them really good down there in that game. And so I think the key is, as John Summerall said, this is the game now. It's us now. We don't worry about the past because those were 2 different situations. We've got a team that can compete. Now, they're still, I don't know if you call 12.5 points a prohibitive favorite, but they are a big favorite, Ole Miss still. But and we'll go over this a little later on, but I love Tulane I love Tulane with the numbers that are given him. We'll have to talk to Tommy about that. I will say this, if they win and go 4-0, they've only been 4-0 twice in the history. In 1998, Tommy Bowden led them to a 12-0 season, and they were 4-0.
Helps when you have Sean King as your quarterback, yes. Right? Now Jake Retzloff has performed very well. Retzloff, the quarterback from BYU that transferred in. He was encased in a quarterback battle with Brendan Sullivan. He wins it out. Now you look at just the experience for Retzloff. He's a quarterback as well, too, Coach. Had BYU with a 7-0 overall record last year.
Right.
So he understands how to win close ball games, and that's a recipe, I think, going to the Grove. I just think style-wise, it's very intriguing because you and I spoke earlier, Tulane can't get into a shootout with Ole Miss, whether it be Trinidad Chambliss or Austin Simmons. They have to play more of a methodical game, and that's why I think when we look at this matchup, I'm leaning to the under 61.5 here.
Yeah, I think so. I think that'll be the kind of game it is. You got to remember, John Summerall, who I coached against two years when he was at Troy, is a hard-nosed, blue-collar, defensive-minded football coach that's going to add offense and be good at balanced offense is what he wants. And when you look at that quarterback at Tulane, he's not fancy. Even when he runs, and he ran for 4 touchdowns, they were great reads, use your head, hit the right hole, and take what's there kind of touchdowns. They weren't make 17 guys miss and juke and jive around with great talent and skill. It was just him being a quarterback, recognizing what he needed to do. So I think that quarterback fits the style. But I will say this, I agree with you. They will want to keep this thing to a lower scoring game, making sure it's a physical game if they can, because Ole Miss does have the ability to score points.
I agree with that. We'll dive into the picks in just a little bit. I think the other matchup, too, that's sort of intriguing, obviously, for Big 12 implications is Utah now up on FanDuel, back to a 3.5-point home favorite over Texas Tech. We have talked about the money instilled in Lubbock just with NIL, just what Joey McGuire has done, taking over this program and bringing life back to it, right? It was the days of Mike Leach where they had Michael Crabtree, and, you could go back where Texas Tech was on the cusp. They are now undefeated in the Big 12, and they're a believer where they get this victory over Utah, Coach. They might be a contender just the way Arizona State was last year.
Yeah, I think these are the two teams that probably are being considered in the top of the Big 12 for the championship. I'm not going to forget about Iowa State out there. We won't talk about them today, but I just have this feeling they're going to be pretty good when it gets down to it. But Texas Tech, they've got money all over Texas, and so does Texas Tech, and they made a commitment that they were going to financially support their NILs and their salaries and their staff. And they have made a huge commitment, and they brought in some outstanding football players. And so they do have a very good team. And I would be surprised if they aren't one of the two teams that are in the conference championship at the end of the year. Utah could be one to knock them out on Saturday, or at least push them back to give them a lesser chance.
Absolutely. And we talk about Devin Dampierre, the quarterback that transferred in from New Mexico, has, just took the Big 12 by storm. He comes out in week number 1, dominates UCLA. Now, I think when we look at that too, knowing where Deshaun Foster is no longer the head coach at UCLA, knowing that UCLA lost to New Mexico last week, they're 0-3. This team is really struggling. How much weight do we put in that week 1 performance by Devin Dampierre and Utah? This is going to be a stiff test. And this is an offense that, as you know, with Baron Morton at the helm, could chuck it. They can run it. They're very balanced. The way they got attacked last year, Texas Tech had one of the worst secondaries in all of college football, giving up over 300 yards per game. I'm not so sure Utah's built that way this year, but they're going to try and run it down Texas Tech's throats on Saturday.
Well, the thing that we have to realize that 3 games in, we still don't know quite sure who the pretenders and the contenders are. Too many games against inferior opponents. They're not being put to the test. Lose one game to an equal opponent and win these ones that aren't very good opponents. So we still don't quite know. Utah's one of those I think we're going to see versus Texas Tech where they stand. Both quarterbacks need to have good days. Should be a great football game, and I think it's a great way to get into the Big 12 football.
Absolutely. You talk about Devin Dampierre, over 600 passing yards, over 60% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. On the flip side, Baron Morton just lighting it up. And last year, I will say they were a different team, Texas Tech. They're a team that I've followed now for the past 3 seasons under Joey McGuire. The biggest thing I can tell you, when you look at Baron Morton, 70% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. is that when Taj Brooks last year was out of the lineup,
Yeah.
they were a different football team. Taj Brooks now has moved on. This offense now has, I want to say, a more consistent identity. They're averaging 215 rushing yards per game. What could the defense give you is going to be the main question, in my opinion, Coach, whether Texas Tech covers and pulls this game out or they lose it by double digits. That's what you get with Texas Tech.
Right. And again, like most games of consequence, you've got to shut down Utah's running ability, try to make them one-dimensional, try to make them throw in passing situations. So you on defense, you have a better advantage than if you let them run the football. So, again, we'll see a little bit right now just how good they are. A lot of preseason talk about Texas Tech, maybe more at Texas Tech than Utah, but their coach has been around the block a few times. They know what they're doing. Should be an exciting ball game.
Really should, and we'll dive into that a little bit later in the show. I think another game that's on people's radars is the battle in Norman. Auburn at 3-0 and Oklahoma with John Mateer. You know, Oklahoma is interesting, and the reason why is because they get the win over Michigan, right? They're 6.5-point favorites right now on FanDuel. They get the win over Michigan, and the thought process was, well, this is it. This is going to be their year. This is it. They could step up, make some plays, and all of a sudden be on the road to potentially, you know, an SEC championship. I think the biggest concern is getting ahead of ourselves about how difficult it is. Even if Oklahoma gets this win on Saturday, they still have to play Texas. They still have to play South Carolina. They still have to play Tennessee. Those are not easy games, Coach. And that's going to be the problem, I think, when we just look at this team overall saying, okay, can we buy into them being a contender, you know, big picture for a college football playoff if they knock off Auburn on Saturday?
Well, it puts them one game closer. It's very hard to get through the SEC conference and end up with only 2 losses. 10-2, you get through that conference and you've got only 2 losses, you're going to make the playoffs. I don't know if you've got you match up against one team and they knock you out of the conference championship, but Oklahoma is still in that hunt. But they have to show it now because they haven't. I mean, we're assuming that Michigan is a dominant. To me, they're rebuilding a little bit there as well. And that's their only big win is against Michigan. So we're going to see as these games go on. And now they're playing an Auburn team that is undefeated. Auburn, of course, they're pretty excited about Jackson Arnold, who did not have a good year last year at Oklahoma. But there's some discussion. I mean, face it, they fired their offensive coordinator in October. So it's either the quarterback's fault or it's the coordinator's fault or the quarterback's fault. Hey, I can't believe it's both of them. But they're real pleased with Jackson Arnold in Auburn. He hasn't thrown for a lot of yardage. That concerns them. But I do believe that Hugh Freeze has not opened it up and let him throw the ball downfield. I've said this many times. The head coach determines half the time where the ball is thrown. If they aren't throwing deep, they're taking underneath routes, that's because they called a play that's what it was supposed to do. I could control everywhere my quarterback threw it unless the defense adjusted and came out with a different defense. By making my calls, I can determine where it's being thrown. So I don't know if they've had to let him go and let him throw. I think they'll be better than that. But the one good thing is they run the football, and more importantly, they can stop the run. Their defense has done a great job of stopping the run. And I think to beat Oklahoma, you've also got to make them a little one-dimensional because I tell you, Brent Venables, who's turned himself back into a defensive coordinator, is going to have the book on that quarterback and know what he does. And even if he doesn't, I worked with him a couple of years. He's one of the best in the country.
He is, and absolutely, I will say that, you know, Brent Venables, from a defensive perspective, does it as good as anybody. That's the matchup. And you mentioned Jackson Arnold, so we could dive into that.
Right.
Jackson Arnold is averaging 173 passing yards per game. He's done more with his legs than he has through the air. And even though they have Cam Coleman and they have Singleton, they haven't done it now. They didn't do it certainly against Baylor because they were able to run the football. They're going to have to do it against this secondary. To your point, they only allowed Oklahoma 84 passing yards per game. So, you know, That's stellar. They haven't given up a passing touchdown. Now, granted, they had some teams like Temple and their week 1 matchup where they dominated, but the Michigan game was a pretty good indicator. They're going to be there from a defensive perspective. 17% Oklahoma is giving up on third down conversions. If you're taking the 6.5 with Auburn, I need Jackson Arnold to potentially get to, can he give me 200?
Again, I think the whole deal is if the quarterback's got the coach is going to put him in that situation. I know Hugh Freeze. I've coached against Hugh Freeze when he was at Liberty, and he had a great quarterback. He likes to throw the football. I think you'll come back and see him throwing it a little more. But like Michigan with a freshman quarterback, or Hugh Freeze at Auburn with a new quarterback, he's bringing him along slowly. They never really had a whole problem with it. I think Baylor, they had the only problem they had in a football game was Baylor, and they were outscoring them in that ball game. That was a higher scoring game, and so they had to throw it a little bit more and run the ball. They just ran it against them. But I think we're going to see a little bit more of Jackson Arnold down the year or down the line to beat teams, you got to throw the ball and run it. We'll see, because that 170 yards a game is not the kind of numbers you're going to have to beat certain teams on your schedule. Let's see if they're going to give him a chance to do it.
I'm going to tell you this right now. This is one of my better picks for the weekend. Over the 40. I was on this total last year.
Yeah.
Now, I thought I was dead to rights. Okay, this was the game Michael Hawkins takes over for Jackson Arnold, because Arnold was terrible against Tennessee. They go on the road. Peyton Thorne was lighting them up early. They get the pick 6. Yeah. Michael Hawkins hits a huge play over the top, 50 yards. The kid's scrambling. It looks like Jamel Holloway out there. Is fantastic. Coach, the total in the game was 44.5. They got to 45, 24-21. I made it by a hair. I won the bet. I'm going over. 47.5 to me seems very light, and I think it's all indicative off the Michigan game. And I understand the numbers for Oklahoma's defense are great, but I believe Oklahoma is going to be able to exploit Auburn. Let's not forget, Sawyer Robertson put up 400 on that defense week 1. I think Mateer could get to at least 350.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I'm looking at Auburn has not turned the ball over yet this year. They play good defense. They're going to want to slow the game down. They want a low-scoring game. I think when you're talking about Oklahoma beating the line and the over, because Oklahoma can score points, I think if you're looking at like Auburn's going to play their best, they're going to keep it, slow the game down, run the football, get it to the second half, and hope they can get within a field goal one way or the other. I think that's the game plan that Auburn has, and again, I'm picking Auburn and the 6.5 points in this game here.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how that plays out. I'm going to put up the other games for the week just to give you an odds. How about this game? Florida and Miami, Coach. This Florida team, dead and buried right now with Billy Napier. Okay, they gave it their best shot to fight before the game starts. It looked like from an emotional perspective, they were there. Your quarterback goes out and DJ Lagway throws 5 interceptions. They take one to the house, and that basically changed the whole complexity of the game. You go from 13-10 to all of a sudden 20-10. It lights out when your offense can't get past the 50. Could they actually go on the road, play with house money, and upset Carson Beck in Miami? Is it possible? Because I like the 7.5.
You know what? I mean, there's that one side of the story that was a 1 in a million game for DJ Lagway. It was one of those games he'll never have again, and he's going to be exactly what they thought he was going to be. They're in a tough situation because when he came to the second half of the season and turned their season around, everything was because of DJ Lagway. We should have played him earlier. He's the answer to our future. We're going to have great future, great prospects with this quarterback. Now you come out there and you lose to LSU because of one person, that quarterback. Now you got nothing to turn to, and I'm saying is unless he corrects that, and it can be done. I don't want to – I remember when Chris Winkie was a early starter for my dad, NC State. He threw 6 interceptions in 1998 against NC State. My dad said he came off the field one time and Peter Warwick grabbed him and says, "Chris, if you'll tell me which guy you're trying to throw it to on defense, I'll try to intercept it." And but you know what? The next year he went undefeated and won the Heisman Trophy. So
Yeah.
you say it can happen. DJ Legway is still the same guy. Right now, I've got doubts. We've all got doubts because he made very poor decisions. If he does make good decisions, they got very good football players. They played LSU tough. They're a very good, even South Florida, who upset them. It was not the defense's fault. That last drive was a little bit rough. They had 2 penalties, if you remember, that led that last drive. Overall, they were playing. It was 16-15 up to that last drive. They were going to win that game, and so this is one of those deals. If DJ Lagway can shake it off, then I think all of a sudden you've got a team that is in a different situation. I'm not sure it'll happen. The fans they're ready for a change, I'm afraid of. And I guess the biggest thing, and you and I have talked about their schedule, they've got 7 more teams in the top 25. They've already played 2 teams in the top 25. Well, actually, they played all 3 of them because South Florida was top 25 as well. LSU, South Florida, and we're also in the top 25. So, again, very tough situation for them going into the rest of this season.
It really is. And, we're going to dive into all of the games. But when you have your brother waiting in the wings, there's nothing better. We have one Bowden, but now I have 2 on deck. And I'm going to welcome in former Tulane and Clemson head coach to the program, Tommy Bowden. Tommy, it's always a pleasure. I met you about probably 6 or 7 years ago when your brother was coaching at Akron and your dad was being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, and they had that special ceremony. I mean, just a fantastic career. Overall, 90-49 as a head coach, 19-4 at Tulane, 72-45 at Clemson. Just incredible. Just give me your thoughts about, I would like to know what the landscape from when you coach to where we are now in college football, what is the biggest difference? And obviously your thoughts about NIL.
I think the biggest difference is can you hear me? Am I
Yep.
muted?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the biggest difference is the head coach back when I was coaching, Terry was coaching, still had distractions on things to do other than X's and O's. Now that's been multiplied maybe 100 times with NIL and transfer portal. You've got to have your hand now actively involved in the day-to-day recruiting, not of prospects, but of your own team. And I think that is probably the biggest thing. And then I think guys that are a little bit older that maybe coached with a harder edge, maybe like Terry and I did, the transfer portal, a lot of your players now would probably be gone with a coach that coaches rather enthusiastically could lose 1 or 2 guys that in the past he wouldn't.
I tell you, the one thing, Tommy, that we've been talking so much about Clemson because that's been kind of one of the big stories. But Dabo talks about a culture, and right now he's kind of defensive out there. But will they turn? I don't want to say turn on their coach. Will they make it hard on him like everywhere else? You've been there.
Yeah, and I used to use my players. I might have got it off you. He's got money, what you call money in the bank. A lot of times you discipline a player, but if he's got a lot of money, he's never been in a problem in 3 years, and all he does something wrong, he uses some of his money in the bank. Dabo's got a lot of money in the bank. Couple national championships. He's played for one, I think, 4 times. Oh, maybe 7 out of the last 10 ACC championships. Just a phenomenal record. They'll probably have a statue of him, but that might be up his backside. but they'll have it. So I think he's got way too much money in the bank. And, as well as I do, that allows you to say things that typically a coach that can't say. So, no, he's not going anywhere. A little frustrated, I'm sure.
Let me follow up because, of course, I went there 2 years as an analyst and got to be around the place. That you had 10 years there, never had a losing season in your 10 years there. But I know Dabo talks about there's a culture at Clemson. There's a type of player that fits in at Clemson, and we're going to develop them and teach them that. Well, how does that fit in with portal transfer and NILs where no matter what happens, if somebody offers more money or they don't go because they grew up loving Clemson anymore, they go where whoever offers the dollar. Can those two, will they collide? Can you survive too much on one without the other?
Of all your Power 4 schools, he's probably the head coach that's depended the least amount on transfer portal. One of the reasons I hired Dabo, he sent me his resume. It's about 40 pages of people he had signed at Alabama, and it's the name of the game. The team of the best players usually wins. He is a great recruiter. He makes it hard for those guys to tell him no. And I can hear him in a home saying, "Listen, son, I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm going to be faithful to you. I'm not going to give up on you." That transfer portal, nah. I think he develops more of a loyalty and less of a chance to people to go the transfer of his players going to the transfer portal. Now, every team's different. The personality and the chemistry of this team, I don't know what it's like. He knows how to talk to team after losing, going being 1-2, but how his team responds. But I do think, Terry, that he's got one of the most loyal teams because of his recruiting approach, how he goes into a home, and then the little bit amount of time that he spent on the transfer portal.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done a really great job of recruiting in-state talent and then obviously coaching that talent up. He took in transfer talent this year. And again, they do have some struggles, but again, it's right there for them because they only have one conference loss. How they respond is going to be the critical aspect, whether they can be a contender the way they were last year. And if they respond against Syracuse from an offensive perspective, Tommy, they should be there. I want to get your thoughts about the ACC as a whole because, for years it was looked at as not as dominant as the Big Ten. It was, top heavy with Clemson overall. But now you see teams like SMU. You saw Louisville a couple of years ago make it to the ACC championship against Florida State. We see Miami now going toe-to-toe with the likes of Notre Dame in week 1. Do you feel the conference has much more parity and is just built now to potentially challenge the likes of the Big Ten and the SEC?
I don't think they will until they develop a little more quality depth from top to bottom. When I came in the league, it was in 1999. It was all Florida State. It was Florida State and who was second, and not only who was second is how far they are behind Florida State. Clemson flipped the script there for a while. Trevor, to start with Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. It's not. It's not who was second. It's how far was the second place team. They had created separation, and now there's not a dominant team like Florida State and Clemson, and then you don't know how the rest of the team league is. Miami's gotten close, and right now they are the only team that looks like they might be a playoff contender other than Clemson if they turn it around. So I think right now the people calling the shots, the SEC and the Big Ten, are the teams that I think they merit their marketability because of the strength of the from top to bottom. I don't think Clemson has that. They've always fought. They fought it when I was there, and they fought it when Clemson took over. And now they don't have a clear cut number one, but it's just not as strong from down below that.
You mentioned Miami. Of course, they play Florida this weekend, and we're all wondering how Billy Napier is doing at Florida under his circumstances. I know during your time at Clemson, you gave him his first job as a graduate assistant. You went and hired him a little later. Is he? And he was a very good coach at Louisiana Lafayette. He whipped me bad twice and did a great job there. But is he equipped to handle the pressure? Because right now he's under extreme pressure at Florida.
Yeah, Terry, he's a godly man, and he's going to need God, over the next few weeks. But another reason I hired him is because of why I hired Dad. But he was a great recruiter. I mean, and he got 100 miles an hour. I'd be on vacation this summer and get a call from the AD and say, "Can I talk to you about Billy again?" we got some, but he was so aggressive in recruiting legally, and so he's going to be able to get the players. I think his dad was a coach. He was a high school coach, but he's got coaching in his DNA, kind of like you and I did. And I think mentally he's tough enough to weather the storm. It's just whether Scott Strickland, the AD, is and that powerful fan base is going to be patient enough. But I tell you what, I don't know if I'd vote against him this week versus Florida.
Ooh, I like Tommy. I like them. I think they can be live dogs. When you get a team that's going on the road, I don't know, back-to-back road games, it's always difficult, but they're catching a touchdown. We'll see. If your quarterback doesn't throw 5 interceptions, they have a shot. I do want to ask you this. because everybody's talking about John Summerall. He's done a fantastic job. But you brought the success to Tulane with Sean King, undefeated, 12-0 regular season. We're starting to see the Green Wave undefeated with Jake Retzloff. They get this win against Ole Miss. Terry and I said John Summerall might not make it past the month of September. He might be in either Florida or another SEC team. What does it take to coach in Tulane? And just give me your thoughts about your coaching success and what we're seeing now with John Summerall leading that team undefeated through week 4.
Yeah, I happen to hit it. You've heard the term the perfect storm. Had a great quarterback in Sean King. I had some nice skill guys. A guy named Buddy Stevens, who has since passed away, had recruited some really good character guys. So I could go in there with a hard edge. Rich Rodriguez was my offensive coordinator. And and we put that, we were kind of ahead of the curve offensively. A lot of people were going to a no-huddle fast pace at the end of the first half or in 2 minutes. We married it from the first snap to the last snap. Maybe the first team to really merit a fast pace no huddle offense, and they hadn't caught up with it. So that got us off to a great start. Of course, the defense hadn't caught up with it, so we won a lot of games. But it's just really to sustain that. My biggest concern staying there, Joe, was not so much. They actually offered me as much as Clemson offered me, maybe a little bit more. But I was concerned whether I could keep my staff. They can pay me, but can I pay my staff and keep them around? And with you seen with Willie Fritz, they had some misses. Got Willie Fritz was a hit. Looks like they've got another hit now. But unfortunately, I think the problem is going to be maintaining the level of money that it takes in the transfer portal, and then to keep your staff. And if Summerall has success, unfortunately, I think he'll take off. Ole Miss is a natural rivalry. We played them when I went there my second year with Tommy Tuberville was there. We played them in New Orleans, advantage for us and the Superdome. And I had them turn on. The Saints would turn on the air conditioning Friday when they played a Sunday game, and I talked them into turning it off. I said, I've got to have heat. I've got to get to so they turned it off. Boy, the Saints about killed me on their Sunday game, but it was hot and it was humid. Close game with Ole Miss. They're a lot more talented than we were. About beat them. We did not, but we tried to gas them out of there with heat as much as we could. About got the guy, grounds guy for Superdome fired for the Saints game on Sunday. But it's a natural rivalry and should be a really good game.
That is great. That is great. We'd love to have you on again throughout the regular season. I mean, just unbelievable stories. I mean, watched all those games of you at Clemson coaching against your dad and just seeing those games play out and all the stories with Terry. I mean, it's just royalty, football royalty here, right here on the show.
Joe, I don't know if we can get Tommy. Tommy, why don't you tell Joe your daily routine? Because it's hard to get Tommy because he's so active and he's having to do so many different things.
I got Facebook from 9 to 10, and then I work out from 12 to 11, light lunch, go ride my bike or walk for another 3 or 4 hours. Then on the back with my headsets and YouTube videos till dinner. Well, till I go to the massage chair from 4:30 to 5:30, and then I've got dinner, pajamas at 4:30 or 5, dinner. Fox News, bed, rinse and repeat.
Well, no, I didn't hear any golf in there, Tommy. No golf.
No, that ain't us.
It's not me either.
Live on the golf course, and I'm not going to get on it.
Oh, that's great. That is great. All right, so we'll try to break up the routine. Not in September. We'll do it maybe in October, November. We'll get you on the Clemson's next big game. It's always a pleasure. Great insight and information. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Got my dadgummit hat on, Terry. I don't know if
I see that. I got that dadgummit hat.
Blue and gold Mountaineers. Appreciate you having me on. Y'all have a good evening.
Thanks a lot. That was great, Terry. That is great.
Joe, Tommy and I played at West Virginia. We started with my father was the head coach, and he left, and then we played for Frank Signetti, who was Kurt Signetti's dad. Right. And Nick Saban was a secondary coach at that time. Rick Trickett was an offensive line. Oh yeah, they had we didn't do well after my dad left for 3 or 4 years, but Tommy started. We were both on the team up there, but we're going back. They're honoring all the players in 1970 through 75 that played for my dad at West Virginia.
Unbelievable.
We're all going back for the TCU game. I'll be doing the show on remote probably later in the week, but a lot of fun up there and a lot of good memories. But bottom line is, we may love Florida State, we may love Tulane and Auburn. Tommy and I are Mountaineers, really, when it comes
I know
down
you
to
are. I know. And I know when we talked about the backyard brawl, I will say this, the pinnacle of watching football, okay, I don't know if you remember this, was back in 2012, okay, when you were there at Akron and you invited me over the house. You had Jeff, obviously, that was there, Chuck Amato, your dad and mom were in town, and we watched Florida State, Miami in your living room, and we were hanging out, and that I don't think Tommy was there. No. I don't think Tommy was there. I met Tommy in New York the following year at the College Football Hall of Fame, but that was to watch the game with Chuck Amato, right? For years, right? Your dad, Mickey Andrews, Amato, and you think of, just the success that Chuck had at NC State with T.A. McClendon and Phil Rivers back in the day, and then Jeff, and seeing your dad and your mom and watching Florida State was one memory I will never forget, and just great knowing you for all these years. It's just amazing.
Well, our family, people don't realize, when I was a kid, when Tommy and I were kids, we sat around a breakfast table with one of the most successful head coaches in history and listened to him talk about his football program. Then we both became head coaches at a fairly early age. My brother Jeff was the offensive coordinator for me and at Florida State. So we have exchanged and talked football so long. That's why one of the things that I hope I can bring to the table when we talk about so many people that are looking for an advantage, for an edge in wagering on a team, is I think like a football coach. I think about the staff and people that change the staff and how much, like Tommy said, he goes in there and he runs a no-huddle offense at a time when nobody was doing it yet. Mike Leach maybe. And that changes everything. And so I'm always looking for a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator, when it's a new season, a new staff, which guy is doing it differently? Gus Malzahn at FSU. And how is that going to affect the outcome of the game this year that has nothing to do with the last 4 or 5 years? You just got to watch all those things. You see it when you're part of a football family.
Absolutely. And we love the insight that you bring, and that's why we love breaking these games down. I give you the numbers, you give the coaching perspective, and that's what it's all about. We're going to join in another friend to the show. He was on last week. He was on a heater.
That's not bad at all.
Mark Lawrence joins us. Mark, how are you? You were on a heater last week. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Joe, nice to be on board with you and the Bowdens. It's nice to have a family affair here. Joe Lisi, one of my favorite all-time guys who grew up with Terry Bowden.
Yeah, awesome.
I've been depending on Joe for stats and figures and names for a long time because there's nobody better, and I'll say that.
Mark. So, Mark, you came on, and tell me if I'm wrong. You gave us West Virginia. You gave us Arkansas. You gave us Vanderbilt, and I was against you on Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
But those were 3 great picks. I mean, and great games. I mean, the Arkansas game was phenomenal because I was on the over. That was a back-and-forth game. And the West Virginia game, we were just talking about Terry being a Mountaineer. I mean, that game goes right down to the wire. They're down by 10 points. They somehow get it into overtime and steal it.
That's what happens in rivalry games, as you know, Joe. Nobody's dead until the final gun sounds, and West Virginia answered that bell, came through strong, and in fact, I'm looking for them to carry that momentum forward this week as well.
Oh, I got to know about this because they're playing Kansas, and I coached against Leopold. I coached against him at Buffalo. He does a great job, and that's an interesting game there because of how much experience Rich Rodriguez has in coaching games, especially if it's tight down to the wire. How many times has he been in that situation, calling plays as time runs out into overtime? You could tell he's been there before.
Oh, no question. Experience means so much in college football, undoubtedly. And I think what works in West Virginia's favor this week is there's something we call in our newsletter called the Smart Box. And what it basically amounts to is teams in game 4, as we have coming up this particular week, we have more a play against Kansas than we do perhaps on West Virginia. But it's teams in game 4 coming off their first loss of the season. They really tend to play poorly at home the very next week. I don't know if they can't get their chin back up off the carpet or whatever it happens to be, but it's a bad roll here for Kansas this particular week. And I think West Virginia with the momentum will carry forward. If they don't win this game, I think they'll at least cash this ticket.
It's interesting because when I saw the points as well, I think the perception, Mark, is they got the monumental win. It could be a letdown with Kansas, especially having a week to prepare and losing to Missouri 2 weeks ago. But I agree with you. They're to me playing with house money. If I had to bet that game, I would look West Virginia as well. Talk to me about the game on Friday, because here in New Jersey, we can't bet this Rutgers game. But we had Mark Malusis on that covers the team. He gave us the whole background. Iowa is 4-0 all time against Rutgers, right? They've dominated. Last time they played was a couple of years ago, 22-0. Could Rutgers actually be a live dog in Piscataway on Friday night?
I think they can. I think you can call this the Bruce Springsteen Bowl in New Jersey. I like to make up this Rutgers football team this year, Joe. I think they're going to make a little bit of noise here. And I think they catch Iowa in an opportune spot. They battled Iowa State tooth and nail. Then they got an easy layup last week, come off a big 45-point win. You don't see Iowa doing that all that often. Now they go into Big Ten conference play and have to lay points on the road. I think that makes for a nice formula for Rutgers here. I'm a big Greg Schiano fan. I think his football teams are just like he is. They're just tough as nails. And I think they're going to end up pulling the rug out on Iowa in this game Friday night.
Yeah, I just think, and I don't know if you've got the over or the under on this one, but I just think Iowa plays into Schiano's hands. They want it to be a physical game. Yes. No matter how much they talk about throwing it, they're not going to throw it. They're going to run the football. And I think that turns to Rutgers' advantage to get the kind of game that they want, a physical game that not necessarily going to be a shootout for them.
I agree wholeheartedly, Coach. I think that's exactly how this game shakes out.
Talk to me about some of the other games that you're looking at. Are you looking at the Illinois Indiana game? I know that was a game that potentially we discussed. To me, you see the line open up at 3.5 with Indiana. Now we've seen money come in. It's up to 5.5 across multiple books. You know, Brett Bielema and the Illini are a physical team going on the road. Is Indiana a contender, or are they a pretender entering week number 4?
Well, they played this really cupcake schedule to begin with here, and they come off that 73-0 win over a high school to get ready for this football game. But I think what people overlook is the job that Brett Bielema is doing with this Illinois football program. You take a look at him on the road with this football program. They've gone 15-3 against the spread. Illinois has in games away on the road from Champaign. And when he's been an underdog in these football games, 12-1 to the spread. So you're talking about a team and a coach that know how to play, especially close call football games. I think the points are very, very liberal in this game. If this game was 1 or 2, I think it'd be a tough call. But I got to take anything more than 3 in this contest with Illinois.
Yeah, and really, if you think about it, now, of course, in a team that always runs the ball well, which is what Brett Bielema wants to do, they're a little bit more predictable, the quality of what they're going to do offensively. Then I love their quarterback. I just think their quarterback is one of the best quarterbacks in the country that nobody really talks about, Luke Altmaier.
I agree 100%. They got the makeup of being a real spoiler-type team in the Big Ten. I think we're going to hear a lot about Illinois this football season.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how that game plays out. Another big one, and Coach and I had talked about this, Mark, was the battle in Norman, Auburn and Oklahoma. And it's not a game, I'm going to tell you this, from a side that I'm going to bet because I'm perplexed. Are we going to get the good Jackson Arnold, or are we going to get the Jackson Arnold that we saw last year for Auburn that looked like a deer in the headlights? What I do like is I'm going contrarian. I think we can get points here over 47.5. I would lean to Oklahoma because of the defense and the more experienced quarterback. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, what you've got here, I think, Joe, that jumps off the page is you have an SEC underdog, and just that alone on the blind has been gold thus far this football season here. It's Oklahoma coming into the SEC, joining the fray as well. But nonetheless, Auburn is still the underdog in this game here, taking points in football games this year. The SEC dogs are 6-0 against the spread. I have to look long and hard at Auburn here. Oklahoma comes off that big win their first game. After their first conference game the last 5 years, they've yet to beat the spread the next game. They're 0-4-1 against the number here. Give me Auburn. I think this game comes right down to who scores last.
Interesting. That's interesting. Anything else, Mark, that you're looking at for this weekend? They could pick up everything. What? Playbook Sports. Playbooksports.com. He's one of the best in the business. Mark took me under his wing, 2014, 2015, when we met out in Vegas a long time ago, huh? 10 years flies.
Well, you were a kid then, Joe. I was just a little bit younger, but you were a kid back then.
Mark, I would have asked you more questions, but I'm too busy taking notes over here.
That's good. That's good.
I know that it fascinates me as a coach. The statistics you look at, because this is coaching's it's tough to win, but you put spreads and those kind of things on ball games. This stuff isn't easy, but I was fascinated with some of the points you hit on the SEC and the underdog.
Well, let me tell you this quick story here, guys. I do a long-standing show in Philadelphia with a guy named Howard Eskin. He's been a legend there the long time. And we used to do a Friday night show every Friday night, and Howard would come and he'd say to me, Andy Reid, when he was the head coach there, he'd say to Andy, he says, well, who's your guy like? Does he like our chances this week? What chance do we stand up winning this week? That's coming from Andy Reid asking Howard Eskin that question.
Hey, have you ever bumped into my man Brent Musburger? We worked at ABC together, and he loves. I can always tell you which team he had money on when he broadcasted because he loved that. He loved the way he was made.
Terry, we all knew.
We all knew at ABC. We were all out there. We were out there.
The way he would call the game, oh, Oklahoma, man. Hey, be objective when you call the game, Brent.
Oh, man. But you know something? He called my best games I ever coached, and my dad, him and Dick Vermeil were on them, and they did a great job together as announcers as well. But he loved them more if he had a little cash on the game.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Dick Vermeil, Coach, because, again, he's a real good friend of Howard Eskins, and he loves all the numbers. He grinds them out all the time. He's a number cruncher, Dick Vermeil.
Yes.
Is he?
Yes.
Super Bowl champ. What could you say? Back in the day, that's it. Dick Vermeil. I mean, what are you going to do? Right.
I went to the broadcasting. I went out to his farm. I think it was just outside of Philly or outside of in the countryside to spend about 8 hours with him. And he showed me how to do a board and how to do the pre-games and all that stuff. And we had the longest talks. I've never seen somebody so helpful. I was a young guy at that time. But he detailed everything. If everybody did things to detail, he was a detail guy.
He checked every box. Yes, he did.
I'll say this as a college announcer: Dick Vermeil and Brent Musburger were in the heyday of Tom Osborne football. Your dad and Tom Osborne. He used to call those black shirt games for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. That's when they had Tommy Frazier and Mike Minner and Lawrence Phillips and those great Husker teams, the Peters brothers. On the call was Dick Vermeil back in the day. As a kid who was growing up in college, I used to listen to Dick Vermeil on the call. He was a fantastic color analyst in the way he would break down the players. He was amazing.
Well, he is that way. That's exactly, why he was such a successful coach as he is, and he's also that way in life as a person. He just he makes sure that he has all the information that's available to him at his disposal.
That's great, Mark.
Let me ask you one more question because we've been debating this all day. When you have a quarterback like DJ Lagway that throws 5 interceptions, and he's really been the reason their team's program around, how much does that go into the way you look at them in the next game against Miami or them down the road? How much impact does that one performance have on the way you think about future games?
Well, I think that's a great question because we're going to find out this week when they go into Miami, big rivalry down here in Florida. But I think the team's going to rally around DJ Lagway this particular week here. They like him as a quarterback. He's got skill. There's no question. He had a bad game, and nothing bounces you back up quicker than taking on a rivalry in the next football game here. I think Florida's a very live dog in this game. Miami's had it easy so far, but I don't think they'll like it at the end of the game on Saturday. I think Florida might take Miami out this weekend.
You're speaking my language, Mark. Come to Papa over here. I'll tell you, I'll leave you with this statistic. I gave you a total last week with the last 10 meetings between Arkansas and Ole Miss. That blew through that number. Remember, 62.5. They got 76 points. The total I like on Saturday, I actually like 2. I told you I like the Auburn one. Sam Houston State has the worst third down offense in the country. They're averaging only 13% on third down conversions, okay? Right? You know what that means? 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Texas might get the total on their own Saturday night. I know they play defense. The total's 51.5. Texas might score 70 in that game with or without Arch Manning over the 51.5. That's my total of the week.
That's a great find on your part, Joe. Here, Texas is always capable with that to be exposed at Sam Houston third down defense here. I think you got a winner on your hands there, bud.
We'll see. We'll see you hopefully next week, Mark. We'll talk about it. Have a great weekend. Playbook Sports, one of the best in the business.
Guys, enjoy the games. Be well. We'll catch up with you down the road. Take care.
Thank you, Mark.
Great stuff. I love talking to Mark. You get the numbers. You can mix and match. Now, Mark does a great job of just putting out numbers, stats against the number. I wrote for his preview for years about coaching trends. And that's the one thing, too, is that when you understand coaching trends, and I'll give you one, like Justin Wilcox, okay, has success now in California. You go back just over his tenure as a head coach, and I want to get your take on this because it's got to be a mindset, right? So
right.
Justin Wilcox, back when he took over Cal, has never been, I don't believe, over 500 on the road. Look at the last 3 years on the road, Coach. Ready? This year, obviously, I don't think they've played a road game. I could be wrong. They were in Corvallis week 1. They're 1-0 on the road. But dating back to last year, okay? On the road, 2-4. The previous year, on the road, straight up. This is not against the spread, right? The previous year, 3-4. So now they're 5-8 on the road the past couple of years. You date back to 2022, right? They're 5-8 on the road, 0-5 on the road. They are 5-13 on the road dating back since 2022. That has to be a mindset. Now, I understand some of it is a talent, but at some point, if you can't win on the road consistently, that's a problem. Now, I will say they're 3-0. They got the freshman phenom quarterback, but they're laying 12.5 points to San Diego State this week. I think they're not. I think they're potentially upset alert. I like the points with San Diego State in this matchup.
Sounds good to me. I have not looked. I'll just be honest with you. I have not looked at that one like you have, but I find those statistics are the ones that you have to do a little homework. You know, that's the one thing that I have found. It doesn't hurt to do your homework on these games and find you. And I think everybody, just like me, every now and then I find one that I just find statistics that are so overwhelming, you've got to go with it. And third downs is one of the most important things because that ends your series. You only got 12 to 14 series in a game on the average. And every time you don't make a third down, you know what you do? You punt. It's the other team's ball, and less chance for you to win that game.
It's interesting. Talk to me just quick. Mindset. Yeah. When you know you're struggling on the road, is there something that you could do? Do you, like for you, would you change up if you know, hey, you got the same routine on the road? Would you switch it up if things weren't going your way?
Absolutely. If you consistently playing more poorly on the road than you do at home, look at what you're doing. Look at what's affecting the players. Are they hitting the field on game day at their peak, at their best place to be performance? Maybe you're working them too hard on Thursday. Maybe you're not doing enough walkthroughs at the hotel. You're not covering things enough in the last moments because you get caught up in all these other things. I think you look at everything you do, and you got to be not afraid to change something. You have to be able to change and be on the front end of something, or it's going to come back and it's going to cost you your job. So absolutely, if you're winning ball games at home and you're losing on the road, look and see what you're doing, because it doesn't have to be that way. I have coached so many years at so many different levels. I made sure, and I think my away game record was about as good as my home game record. I have found that if you're in a lower than a Division 1A level, the capacity of the stadiums are so small, crowd noise is not a factor. Away games aren't a real problem at D2 and 1AA, and I coached half my career on my way up at that level. But when you get to the top level, if you're in the big stadium level, like the SEC, Big 12 to some extent, and the Big 10, you better be ready for a lot of things, because it's going to be difficult to win on the road when the home field advantage is so big.
I agree. So let's get into some of the games, and we're seeing some movement now come in on Miami. So Miami now, Coach, is an 8.5-point favorite over the Florida Gators. Yesterday it was 7.5. We're seeing some money come in on Miami now, and Carson Beck, obviously, one of the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. We'll see if they could step up. But let's dive into some of the big games and we'll break them down. We'll see exactly how you feel and if you and I are on the same side. So let's start with the big one. Texas Tech and Utah, 12 o'clock kick in Salt Lake City. This game is going to come down to Behren Morton, for me, in big matchups, has struggled. And I know this year he hasn't. He's playing lights out, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. We talked about Texas Tech rushing for 215 yards on the ground. This defense for Utah, they're very good. And Utah plays much better at home than they do on the road. But I'm a buyer of Joey McGuire. I'm a buyer of this Texas Tech team. I'm going to take the 3.5 points in this matchup, Coach. I think they could strike the upset. I think Dampierre is good. I don't think he's elite.
I don't think he is either. And I don't know where in New Mexico they're finding all these quarterbacks, but he's another one like Diego
Pavia. Right.
Pavia. But I'm with you on Texas Tech. They also can put numbers on the board. They average 58 points a game, first in the nation, 600 yards a game. That's first in the nation as well. So they know what they're doing on offense too. But I like the way Texas Tech, I've kind of been on them for a while as a team that I think will play for the conference championship. So I've got Texas Tech as the dog on this one.
Yeah, so let's look at this one because we've seen some line movement.
Yeah.
Missouri opened as a 13.5-point home favorite over South Carolina. It's down to 9.5. If Lenoris Sellers doesn't play, Luke Doty, a senior, will take over. 4 of the last 7 games, Coach, have been decided by 7 points or less. Last year it was a complete shootout, 34-30. South Carolina got the home win. It blew through the total. They're on the road coming off a blowout loss to Vanderbilt. Whether Lenoris Sellers plays or not, I'm inclined to take the 9.5. I also liked it at 13.5. I got it on Sunday. I think they could potentially be live. I'm not sold on Bo Perbula. He's playing well, but I'm just not sold on Missouri being elite. And that's where I think South Carolina, from a defensive perspective, could bounce back in a big way.
Now, did you give me 9.5? Did we say it's down to 9.5?
Yeah, it's down to 9.5.
I'm going to take Missouri. I just think I'm going to take them at 9.5 because I thought when it got to 13, I just couldn't see it. But I'm not going to concern myself so much whether Lenoris plays or not because he has not played up to his level yet. Their offense has not been to that level. Missouri's got a really good football team, and they're playing very well. Perbula, he just finds a way to help them, whether it's passing or running. He finds a way to help them. And I will say that little running back they got from ULM, he's 4th in the nation in rushing, 140 something.
Hardy.
Hardy is something now, but I do like I like Missouri. I like the way they're playing, and I'll take him at 9.5. I'll take them.
Yeah, so Hardy's averaging 8.1 yards per carry. That's crazy when you think about it. 8.1 yards per rush, Coach. We talked about this Florida game, 8.5 now. I'm going to take a shot with DJ Lagway. I know Carson Beck is good, but I don't think he's elite. I know some are saying he's the best quarterback in this draft class. I don't see it. I think he could be exposed, especially if Florida could dial up some blitzes and quarterback pressures. I am going to take Florida. Wouldn't shock me if they strike the upset. Rivalry game, I always want the big points. Give me the Gators. It wouldn't shock me if they go into Coral Gables, South Beach, and strike the upset.
I take the Gators too. I don't think they'll upset them. I think Miami is too stable. They've got a stable football team. They're not built on a quarterback having to find a way to win. They're going to play good football, but I agree with what Mark said. They believe in this quarterback. It was a bad game, but at least he got it all out in one game, and I agree. I think the team has the talent to play Miami very close, and I think Lagway will learn from his mistakes. I think he'll follow up with a good, solid game, especially in regard to turnovers. I just think you're very conscientious about that. And you take the turnovers away, and they may have even beaten LSU. So give me Florida and the points in a game that I think Miami will win, but not carry with the spread.
All right. The battle in
Okay.
Bloomington. Did you ever think I'd say that? The battle in Bloomington. Luke Altmaier squaring off against Fernando Mendoza. This kid Mendoza almost cost me the game last year with Florida State. The kid, I was just thinking, can we get this kid? They missed a field goal at the end. Remember, Cal, they pushed Florida State. If they win that game, Florida State doesn't win against an FBS opponent all season long. But they're now, Indiana, laying 5.5 against Brett Bielema. We saw Illinois go into Durham and smack around, not Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz
Duke. Yeah.
Duke, right? A couple of weeks ago. Can they do it again? It's going to come down to can Altmaier outdo Mendoza. And this defense for Indiana is very good. They're disciplined. But can Illinois shut down the rushing attack of Indiana? I like the Hoosiers. I would lay it, but it's not a best bet.
I'll take the Indiana to cover on this one too. I just think that Kurt Cignetti, I know him personally. He is a phenomenal head coach. He's confident to the point of being arrogant. You know, he's a cocky son of a gun. He said, I thought I saw an article he said today is, go Google me. I just win. You know, that was his comments. Go Google me. You'll find out one thing. I win football games. But he has a way, and they usually can mix the run and the pass. They play good defense. I think people see those scores and think he's just a throw, and add him on at the end. But I believe he's got it, and I think he'll have a little bit too much offensive combat balance to come out there and play good defense. So I've got them. With that point spread, I've got Indiana on this one.
All right, we'll turn our attention to the other big games. Auburn and Oklahoma. I talked to you about the defenses. I talked to you about the quarterbacks. I believe Mateer is better than Arnold. I believe Oklahoma has the better third down defense and the better secondary. But I would lean to Oklahoma with the side. I love the total. Give me the over 47.5. It's one of my best picks of the weekend. I just believe this game flies through the total. It got there last year, but I think we could go over in a big way. Give me over 47.5.
Give me Auburn in the points, because I'll say this. I wasn't sure if it was just my heart talking, but when I heard Mark talk about the underdog SEC team on the road playing and having success, I think he said something like 5-0. It solidified. I said Auburn's going to play a great ball game. They've got the points at 7 points now. I like that spread. I think they'll play a great football game. And if they don't win it, they'll keep it close. So I'll take them and the points.
All right, here we go. The big one. You've lost 13 straight. We had your brother Tommy come on and talk about how great it is to coach in New Orleans. It's a great city. They're catching now 12.5 on the road against the Rebels. The Rebels have won 13 straight. The last 4 they've dominated by an average margin of victory of 27.5 points per game. Trinidad Trambless could be the next Jackson Dart. Austin Simmons, who knows if he even starts again, right? We don't know.
We don't know.
What I do know is Jake Retzloff is a battle-tested quarterback. I like a team that's methodical, and I'm not sold on this Ole Miss defense. They're giving up $194 on the ground. They're like a glass house in run support. We saw Taylon Green busted up for over 100 yards. Give me Tulane. I don't know if we win, but I hope they do. That would be great. But give me the 12.5. What I do like is the under 61.5, because in order for Tulane to even be competitive, has to be a lower scoring game.
I don't know about the over and under. Again, I haven't really looked at that quite as much as I should, but I have been locked in on that 12.5. I think it was 13.5 for a while, but it's 12.5 right now. And again, I do think Ole Miss is going to end up having more points than Tulane. But the way they play football, the toughness of that football team, the leadership and the experience of their quarterback, I've got to take Tulane in that 12.5.
All right, so we're in agreement there. Leave the totals to me. I'm the numbers guy. You don't have to worry about the totals.
I like every now and then. I like it.
All right, so I'm going to shock you on this one.
All right.
Okay? So the battle in Lincoln. I love Matty Rule. I love Dylan Raiola. But they can't beat Michigan. They've lost. Let me just double check this. I believe It's 4 straight in the series. It might be even more than that. But they've lost the last 4 to Michigan, Coach, by an average margin of defeat of like 29.5 points per game. They have been knocked around by the Michigan Wolverines. Bryce Underwood, less than impressive in his last game, right, against Oklahoma.
Right.
I think they make a statement. They go into Lincoln, Nebraska, blue-collar football. They're going to run it like the name of our show. Somehow, some way, Bryce Underwood in Michigan. Their favorite, I think they win it by 7 or more. They're going to crush Nebraska's hopes in this matchup.
I don't think so. I like the experience of Raiola, the quarterback. I like the way Rule has done the job he's done there and what we will do at Nebraska. I still question whether Michigan is rebuilding their team a little bit. They're not as good as they will be, or we still think about that championship team. And I just like Raiola better than I do a young Bryce Underwood. I think if they try to do too much with him, there's a turnover, there's a mistake waiting to happen just because of pure youth. But he may be into his second big away game, but it's still a rookie, a freshman, and every one of these things is different. And I'll say this, I've coached in quite a few games out there when they were really good. What a great atmosphere that is. They have not been real good for a long time, but I think they may just be starting to be a pretty good football program again.
It's possible. Now, they have lost 4 straight. They haven't played since in the series. They've lost 4 straight. Michigan is 8-4-1 all time against Nebraska. It even goes back to the days when they played in the Fiesta Bowl with Jim Harbaugh at quarterback. So this is it. They have dominated the series. I'm going with the mobile guy. I'm going against the grain. Somehow, some way, I believe Michigan finds a way to win it. Intriguing game in Waco, 7:30, Coach. Baylor laying 2.5. Arizona State coming off the disappointing loss to Miss State. Baylor's starting to hum. Sawyer Robertson second behind Steve Angeli. Passing yards in all of FBS, 1,080. I love this Baylor team. I don't know what it is. They could put up points. I love just this team as a whole. I love the way Sawyer Robertson plays. I think they make a statement. Not going to be easy, but I would lay the 2.5 with the Baylor Bears at home against the Sun Devils.
I'm with you on that one. I think you picked the right one. I've kind of watched. Of course, I studied them a lot because they opened up with Auburn. So I spent a lot of the offseason studying their personnel, their quarterback, the talent that they have. They're going to put the points on the board. They're going to put points on the board and really pressure Arizona State to have to score. I was very unimpressed with Arizona State against Mississippi State and what they did. And because in a team that they played the year before, I think they lost the year before to Mississippi State and went out there and lost again in a year that they were picked to be one of the top teams in the conference. They were conference champions last year. So I like Baylor. I think they've got to be another one of those teams in the Big 12, along with Utah, and along with Texas Tech, along with Iowa State. You've got about 4 teams that can go out there and challenge for that conference championship. I think they're one of them, and I think they'll have one more win after the game with Arizona State.
Yeah, so we talked about it. Some other picks that I'll give you, and we'll just throw them out before we end. I do like the over in Texas. I told you. Sam Houston State, worst third down offense in all college football. You know, when you have 3 and outs and you're given a short field to the Texas Longhorns, especially with Arch Manning looking to get into a rhythm, could be a long day. 51.5. I actually believe Texas could score that on their own. Give me over the 51.5. The other total that I really like, Coach, I really like the total in Auburn. That's the one game I think we could get the over 47.5. It wouldn't shock me if Arnold and potentially, my backdrop there went out. But if Jackson Arnold and Mateer potentially maybe they get into a shootout, it's possible, but we could have points aplenty in that matchup. The other coach, let me just tell you this, and I told you about Justin Wilcox, the coaching advantage, and just coaches that are not good on the road, even though he won week number 1. His stats overall, he's 6-13 over the last 3 years straight up on the road or on a neutral field. San Diego State is a live dog, in my opinion, especially with a freshman quarterback. He's been playing lights out, but these kids from San Diego State, it's like a rivalry. You're coming to our house. I'll take the 12.5. I think they strike the upset over Cal, especially when Wilcox can't coach on the road.
All right, I'm going to give you my favorite over. I'm going to Texas Tech and Utah. You've got Utah that's a third in the conference, giving an average of 45 points a game. You got Texas Tech, number one in the nation, averaging 58 points a game. I know they put some points on some bad teams, but teams that love to score, that will go out there and lay it out there the entire game, that'll keep the pedal to the metal. I think both these people have scoring. 56.5, I think it's still the over-under is at 56.5. As long as it's around there, I'm going with the over.
All right, so I like it. I'll keep an eye out on that. I do like Texas Tech. Another game I'll just throw out, keep an eye out for Memphis and Arkansas. That total, because again, contrast in styles, right? Memphis, in order to win that game, has to be low scoring. I think under the 60.5, I think is doable. We're talking about a Memphis defense only giving up basically 69 rushing yards per game, 11 points per game. I know the level of competition hasn't been like Taylon Green in this physical offensive line, but I like Memphis to potentially make it a game and give me under 60.5 in that matchup. I like Wisconsin. I think they bounce back in a big way. Whether Billy Edwards plays or not, to me doesn't matter. I'm just sold that Luke Fickell, when you're a coach that doesn't have a marquee win, especially in 3 years, you have to cover these games now at home. So that's another one that I like this Saturday.
Sounds good. Did we cover how did you go with the Iowa Rutgers? Did you put anything on that game?
You can't bet it here in New Jersey, but if I did bet, it would be Rutgers and the over. I hope Rutgers wins. I really do, because I would love to see quickly Oregon come to Piscataway undefeated. And I was at that game in 2006 when Bobby Petrino walked in with Stefan LaFleur's, Lionel Gates, Eric Shelton, and Robert McCune. And somehow, some way, that Mike Teal Rutgers team with Brian Leonard, Ray Rice, and all of them upset. I was first row that game. I stormed the field. It was great. Great environment. I would love to see that again. So I'm pulling for Rutgers in that matchup.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with Iowa. I'll listen to Mark and what do you have to talk about. But I just think they after the tough loss they had with Iowa State, I do think they respond. And it'll be one of those grinded out games. And but I'm gonna go with them. It's a 2.5 point spread right now, and so I'll go with Iowa on that one.
Yeah, we'll see exactly what transpires. But Coach and I will be back for week number 5 in college football. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. We'll see you next week on We're Gonna Run It. Have a great weekend, everyone.